The Gemara in Makkah says at the end of Makkah, "Ba David ve'amidim al achadesrei." David HaMelech came and was mamid, established the Torah on 11 things. What's the idea of establishing the Torah on 11 things? So I'll read you Rashi. Shebetchila, originally hayit tzadikim. The Jewish people was full of righteous ones. Vayicholum lekabel ol mitzvos harbe, and they could well accept upon themselves the yoke of many mitzvahs. Avodoros achronim, the later generations, lo hayit tzadikim kol kach, they weren't as righteous. Bim bol lishmor kulon, and if they came to work on all the mitzvahs, all 613 together, ein lech adam shezocha. It would be almost impossible to merit such a thing. Uba David b'midim, and David HaMelech came, in one of his less known roles. We always relate to David as from Tehillim, etc., Anim Zmiris Yisrael, but David came also as a manig, as a leader, as a melech, and was mamid the Torah in 11 things. Gedei shisku imikaim, in order they would be zocha, they'd merit imikaimu yudal of mitzvah halalu. The explanation I understand, I think I heard from Revolva, but basically this idea is this Gemara is of course not Reconstructionism. Going back to that theme, I guess, it's not Reform Judaism. Oh, great, 613 too much. Let's do 11. Drive to Shul on Shabbos. No, that's not the idea. Rather, it was a question of focus. Of course, we were chayiv in all Tariq mitzvahs the same way before David spoke and afterwards. It's not that everybody was hiding this Gemara from you and you became religious. There was nothing shady going on. In fact, one of the first Masechtas you learn when you try to finish a Masechta is Makkah. So many people know this Gemara. Okay? But the idea was if one comes to focus on all 613 together, it becomes an impossible task. The same way that many of us learned together the famous Gemara about Hillel, who focused the would-be convert, that's a gateway to get to all the mitzvahs. Now, this work was so important that it started with David. That was a chiddush. That was a novelty of David HaMelech. But it continued over the next generations, as Rashi says, "V'chein kol shah doros shel mata holchim ismatin also," and so to the later generations continued the same type of work. David said 11. Yeshayahu the Navi, again, not in the normal role we imagine the Navi, but the Navi did do this. Yeshayahu the Navi came, and he was mamid on 6. Okay, we could spend the whole 3 days talking about David's 11 and Yeshayahu's 6. But then, Micha, this is a more famous position, the Midim al Shalosh, Micha, one of the minor prophets from the Treasar, the Midim al Shalosh, and he was mamid, he established the Torah on 3 points. Dichsiv, Higi l'chal matov. Let me tell you, man, what is good. And what does the Kadosh Baruch Hu desire from you? Ki masos mishpat, v'habas chesed, act with justice, avas chesed, love righteousness, love chesed, love kindliness, v'atznei alecha, sim Hashem elokecha, and walk with tznius, walk with modesty. Amazing. So mishpat zedin, avas chesed, zegimil chasad, v'atznei alechas. That happened to be a haftorah a few weeks ago. So then this is interesting. Then Chazar Yeshayahu, and he said, 6, 2, and he was Mamid al 2. This work was so important that Yeshayahu took his initial step, his initial parley into the thing was to do 6. And then he said 2. What were they? Kol ma Hashem shimmer mishpat vasutzdaka. And finally, and here's what we're trying to get to. Ba Chabakuk, a short Navi. Ve'midan al achas, and was mamid the whole Torah 1 point. Shenemar v'tzadik ve'emunasa yichya, and the righteous one lives in his emuna. Incredible. And this Habakkuk was teaching is and should be and will be a singular focus for later generations. How do we attach ourselves to the whole Torah? How do we get ourselves to schus? Through emuna. This Gemara alone, just to be misbone and to reflect a little bit, is such a strong source for the idea of working on Emunah. We might all fill in what we think is the number one thing. After the work of the earlier generations, 11, 6, 3, 2, achas. One thing a person has to focus on is v'tzadik ve'emunasa yichya. That's the verse that he brings. Emuna, we're going to translate that loosely as faith, but of course, maybe over these next 3 days, that definition will change. The great Rambam said about himself that his chaviv be'einav, it is more beloved to him, learning topics relating to Emuna than all his other limudim. Let's think what that means when Rabbeinu Rambam says that. The Rambam was so great in Torah. That's pretty obvious. And Lahavdil so great in secular subjects. And he knew so unimaginably well so many topics. Right? What was the Rambam's mindset? He knew philosophy, and he knew medicine, and he knew Torah, all aspects of Torah, all aspects of Shas, everything we can imagine. But his most beloved topic was Emuna. Think about that. And he begins his magnum opus, the Mishnah Torah, with foundations of Emuna. The Chovas Halevavos, the famous ethical work, the work which all the Bali Musa learn and emphasize in many around the Jewish world. Chovas Halevavos is still learned today. Begins his classic with a long chapter on Emuna. Rabbi Yerucham Levavitz, going forward a few generations, said about Rashi that we all learn. Mar Besedra, Chumash with Rashi. 95%, I think this is, I didn't get a chance to check the exact quote, but remember I see it. 95% of Chumash Rashi is Emuna. It's things about Emuna, about topics. Emuna. I assume everyone in this room has a basic Emuna, otherwise you wouldn't be here. I hope. Right? We try in Shapell's not to give, learning skills to people who don't believe in Torah, right? But that's great. But we all need to keep educating ourselves about Emuna and strengthening ourselves in Emuna. And we decided to take the afternoons the next few days to bring our Emuna more to life. One idea, and I'm going to wrap this part up soon, of Tzaddik Munasa Yichya, those words that Habakkuk taught us. Tzaddik b'munasa yichya, the tzaddik lives in his emuna. Tzaddik b'munasa, the tzaddik in his emuna lives, is that if you don't have emuna, you die. And a simple way of understanding those words, many understandings in those words. You have nothing to look forward to. A person without emuna, it's dark often. You see no way out of the difficulties life has for you. Think about the secular perspective. Now, when I say secular, I don't necessarily mean what secular Jews think, because secular Jews have a lot of emunah. But we're talking about the shkafas, the ideologue, secular ideologue, right? So what's the secular perspective for the end game for our fight with our loving neighbors in Israel around the world? Anyone know how we're going to get out of anti-Semitism, radical Islam, whose tentacles are everywhere, secularism, progressive values, Iran, and the ugly marriage of all that together? Any good ideas? Huh? Anybody have, as our comments would say, the silver bullet? I know, Yeah. Okay. But the Maimon, think about that. How are you going to do it? But the Maimon knows, a believing Jew knows, that in the end all will be okay. We know that. When, how, what? There might be pain along the way, definitely. But in the end, Ani Ma'amad Buna Shlema, that's going to be good. And on a deeper level, one who has bitachon, which we're not speaking about specifically so much these days, trust in God, which is simply the outgrowth of Emunah, knows that in some ways, everything's already okay. Leave the driving test, they used to say in the Greyhound Company. You have a good driver. Kadosh Baruch Hu is running the world. It's going okay. And someone who's a maimon to also feel that. What a difference. What a difference between life and death. A point of, and understand that secular people do make that decision. I'm not going to throw my lot in Israel. I'll go to Houston or wherever, and I don't see any way out of this. And it's understandable. But the maimon, it's the exact opposite. So much faith, so much confidence in our little land here. So we have an amazing list of topics. This is how I originally wrote it. And I had to add, my own Emunah had to be strengthened last night because, unfortunately, Rabbi Haber had a very pressing family matter, and he couldn't come today. Totally understandable. But the idea was originally we were going to focus on, basic Emunah and Hashem and trying to define and get our head around it. And then we're going to talk about like Chazal and development of Torah Shapell Peh and Moon and that tomorrow, but we had to flip it all around. And Baruch Hashem, Rafi kindly agreed to take his shir from tomorrow and put it today. Time warp. It's not really him. It's just it's a hologram of him. But we're impressed that together all the thank God we have all this stuff. But that's going to be today. That's if you're wondering like what's the shaykhs of the topics. That it's not really, but we tried to work out as best as we can, and it's fine. You just put it together, and then so Rafi will be speaking now on why we listen to the rabbis. So you guys so far you're doing good. Everybody's listening to me well. So good. I see you took the sign seriously. Yeah. And then I have a new workshop called How to Strengthen in a Practical Way, Emuna. And then you see a list of topics for tomorrow. And then we have something very special on Thursday. We have something personal. Our own Rabbi Jablon is going to speak about Emuna through the personal trials and tests he's gone through with his dear autistic son, Yehuda. So it should be very, very special. Hopefully it'll only add to the campaign. Not in any way take care of the campaign. And we have little breaks assigned in between. So Rabbi Wolf will speak about till around 4:30, 4:35 or so. Then we'll take a 10-minute break. Then I'll be back here at 4:45 and till 6:30 with me. We'll probably have a little bit of a break in the middle also. We'll see how it goes. Okay? Good? All right. So have a great... and I should just say, guys, the more you put in, the more you put out, right? It's a unique chance. We took away from the regular schedule. Rabbi Schneider and I know what it is to take away from the regular schedule. We like Gemara, we make our money teaching Gemara, and it was extra work definitely for me and for Rabbi Schneider, definitely, but we did it because I think it's important, so I hope everybody will enjoy and dig in.